When you vote for President of the United States every 4 years, you are putting your future into their hands. Out of the thousands of decisions that presidents have to make, a decision to go to war is one that can never be undone. When voting for a president, you are giving them the responsibility to decide if the United States will go to war against another country. Although the president has a large say in getting involved in war, in America, the citizens are just as much involved. The involvement of each citizen in the World War II effort is a true testament to our democracy and the morals we were fighting for throughout the war. As soon as Japanese planes bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, the United States knew that this marked the beginning of brutal war against the Japanese. With Congress's declaration stating that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on December 7, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire, 16.1 million soldiers would be leaving their homes and their family members to fight in Japan and Germany.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
It was not only the soldiers who fought. Each and every citizen at home was fighting for their country as well. Whether you were a nurse aiding soldiers, a member of the Army or the Navy, a housewife at home, or working in your family business store, a decision to go to war significantly influenced your life. Everyone's cooperation was needed to defeat a country. Men were forced to leave their jobs behind in order to enter combat. This left great opportunity for women to take over. Although this created jobs for women who otherwise would be out of work, with a new job came responsibility. It was not easy for these women to step up and take over these positions that were drastically different from their usual role as a housewife. This change in character can be shown through the lives of Edith Sokol and Victor Speer. Edith and Victor were students who met at Ohio State University and got married on June 14, 1942. Shortly following their marriage, Victor was drafted, forcing them to move 14 times over the next 2 years. In September of 1944, Victor was sent to Europe, forcing Edith to return to her child home in Cleveland, Ohio. While living in Ohio, Edith began working at a federally sponsored daycare center and was eventually appointed director of the Cleveland's True Sisters Daycare Center. During the 18 months that Edith was separated from Victor, Edith became attached to her work and grew to take much satisfaction from it. We can see this true satisfaction from working and being independent through the letters that Edith wrote to Victor throughout 1945. Edith wrote to Victor in one letter, "I want to make sure I make myself clear about how I've changed. I want you to know now that you are not married to a girl that's interested solely in a home. I shall definitely have to work all my life. I get emotional satisfaction out of working, and I don't doubt that many a night you will cook the supper while I'm at a meeting." This shows how women learn to live without depending on their husbands and to take responsibility for themselves while supporting the war effort. In Wayland during World War II, each citizen took it upon themselves to positively contribute to the war effort as much as possible. Everyday life of citizens living in Wayland was one of work, worry, and hope. During times of war, every single person in Wayland was needed, and each had his own purpose. Throughout the war, many Wayland civilians became very involved and wanted to support the war by buying war bonds. War bonds were sold by the United States during World War II in order to raise money for the war effort and to buy war materials and weapons. Citizens were lending their money to the government to use to protect the country, and when the war was over, the government would pay the citizens back with an added interest. This is a way for civilians to directly influence the war. We can take a closer look at life in Wayland during World War II through a newspaper called the Contituate Jeep. This newspaper, started in 1945, was mailed free to servicemen and could be ordered by mail for $1.50 for 6 months. There were 263 men and women from Contituate in the service, and each one of them received a copy of the Jeep. Each issue of the Jeep contained many columns about the local servicemen and about town events. In addition, with each issue, the Jeep gave away a war bond to someone from Contituate fighting in World War II. For example, the Constituent Jeep shows that 4 bonds were issued on April 20th of 1945 in recognition of Curtis Howland, Chester Rafus, J. Robert Wright, and Leland Robinson, Jr. These war bonds were given from the members of the Constituent Fire Department. In addition to supporting the war effort through bonds, churches sent their best wishes to soldiers through the Constituent Jeep. While men were away fighting, there were many roles that citizens needed to step up and fulfill. For example, as shown in the Constituent Jeep, several men from Constituent are now guards at Cushing General Hospital. They are Tom Murray, Fred Bemis, Alan Amay, and Edward Doran. These positions were crucial to the town of Wayland. Another way in which Wayland citizens got involved was by forming a community with each other and by supporting each other through such tense times. The war effort transformed Wayland into a community, especially during the last year of war. With so much horror and loss, citizens learned to appreciate the simple joys of life. Citizens also learned how to comfort and help their friends and family get through rough times. During the last year of the war, the town of Wayland was really becoming a tight-knit community and continued to be so after the war ended. The annual Strawberry Festival that used to occur in Wayland showed the sense of community through its increase in attendance from 1935 to 1945. It was a time to come together with members of your community and celebrate the arrival of summer. The Strawberry Festival took weeks of preparation, with dozens of volunteers needed to harvest the strawberries, organize games, and to sell tickets. It was a whole town effort just to get everything prepared. The Strawberry Festival exemplified the true community that evolved in Wayland during and following the war. American citizens were completely involved in the war effort. As each citizen gave support to the war effort from home, they became physically involved as well. American civilians became possible targets, although thankfully they were not directly fired upon during World War II. Citizens of the United States are just as much involved in war as they are in a democracy. A war effort is not truly a war effort until each and every citizen, fighting and at home, is emotionally and physically involved. Although American citizens were not directly fired upon, the United States military involved Japanese civilians in the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These were 2 very populated towns in Japan, filled with an abundance of Japanese citizens. Just as much as American citizens were involved from home, the Japanese were as well. Our democratic nation was strengthened during World War II as we fought to defeat the overpowering fascist regimes and to stand up for democracy. As democracies were enforced through our victory in World War II, the democracy of the United States was also strengthened through the genuine cooperation between citizens living in the town of Wayland and throughout the United States. The constant contributions made by American citizens to the war effort is similar to how Americans are involved in almost every decision that takes place in the United States. The successful collaboration that took place at home during World War II shows how each and every citizen can make a difference in this world.